Hello and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden. It's been another wet week here in the south coast of the UK, and I think most of us in the UK are probably getting a bit fed up of this rain through the summer now. It's having an impact on a lot of the plants. I've just had to move all my chilies indoors to try and get them to dry out a little bit because they just do not like this wet weather. Now, coming up in today's episode, I share with you my top 10 hardy foliage plants for a tropical garden. I talk to Chris Bailey, head gardener at Staunton Farm, who tells me about the Amazon lily, which is in flower now, and his tropical glasshouse. And I provide information about one of the most important plants in my garden, the Ricinus communis. But first, let's take a look at how my garden's got on this week. The garden's starting to get to the point where the plants are fighting each other for space and light. While in most gardens that wouldn't be desired, in a tropical jungle-like garden this is exactly the effect we're going for. My Nicotiana sylvestris has started flowering now, which is quite early because it hasn't actually reached the height that it did last year yet, which is probably because of the weather. And my Nicotiana glauca has also started flowering. This Cleoma was given a few years ago, and I've kept it going by collecting the seeds each year. It has this lovely deep pink flower, and it will continue to flower now throughout the rest of summer. Microcosmia lucifer has finished flowering now, which was a lovely shade of red. However, the other varieties are still flowering and providing a lot of colour in the garden. And my Nephophia nobilis is still producing an abundance of flowers, which is doing much better than it did last year. So I've just ordered 2 more of these. And this stunning burgundy red and yellow flower is the Courtleia spicata, which you might remember is one of the plants that I picked up at the Unusual Plant Fair at Gilbert White's house. So if you're looking for a hardy plant with really tropical looking flowers, then you can't go wrong with this one. This solitary gladiolus is still flowering. None of my other gladioli have produced a flower bud yet. And I'm still getting plenty of flowers from my sunflowers. However, these have actually been a bit of a disappointment for me, because despite buying several different varieties of red sunflower, they're all coming through with the same orangey shades. But 2 of my dahlias are starting to flower now. I absolutely love this variety with its really dark leaves in contrast to its bright flowers. And this twining smarty is a new variety for me this year, inspired by my dahlia video, which I'll put a link to in the description. The cannas have been a bit slow to flower this year, however this pink variety is in full flower now. And all of my Canna Cleopatra plants are now starting to produce these bright coloured buds, and they will be opening soon. My Salvia amistad has been growing really well and now is even starting to produce a flower bud. So in a couple of weeks' time this will look amazing. The morning glories have been a bit affected by the rain and the flowers aren't looking that great. But hopefully the weather will improve and then they'll start to look fantastic. I've kept this Albizia in a pot for a couple of years, but they really don't like being kept in pots, and since planting it, it's almost doubled in size. Although I've not seen much growth yet from the summer chocolate variety I planted recently. Last episode I showed you this Pennisetum that I got from the Hampton Court Plant Fair. The heat had affected it, but it's recovering nicely now. I often grow sweet corn in my garden as the foliage is very similar to things like ginger, and with the added bonus that I might get some edible corns from it as well. And of course we get some lovely coloured foliage from the Strobilanthes and the Begonia rex, silver spirit, which survived last winter in the ground. My Musa sycamensis is coming back nicely after dying to the ground over winter. And you can see the lovely red stripe appearing in the leaf, which earns it its nickname Bengal Tiger. I haven't got a lot of jobs done in the last fortnight with the weather. However, I have thinned out my bamboo, which lets light into the centre and promotes overall growth. And don't forget, there's another chance to win some canna plants in my competition, and here's how you enter. Now it's competition time. I'm running a new competition to win some canna plants from my garden, and I have 5 prizes available, including canna patens, canna musifolia, canna Cleopatra, canna Russian red, and a lovely red variety of canna with beautiful red leaves and red flowers. All you need to do to enter is to share this post on either Twitter, Instagram or on Facebook. Make sure you're following that account and comment on the post to confirm that you live in the UK. Details of how to follow these accounts will be at the end of this video and links are in the description. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at my top 10 hardy tropical foliage plants. This is my top 10 of hardy foliage plants that I grow in my tropical garden. These are all plants that are generally considered hardy on the south coast of the UK. At number 10 is Fatsia japonica. This architectural evergreen shrub is a fantastic plant if you're looking for something that will grow well in a shade, as these palmately lobed leaves grow darker and more glossy in shady conditions. Although it will also tolerate full sun, it will enjoy most soil types and will be hardy down to -15 degrees. The leaves on Fatsia japonica's spider's web are speckled with white, although this variety is slower growing and shorter than the Fatsia japonica, reaching only 2 metres tall, while this variety is likely to reach 3 metres. Fatsia can be propagated through semi-hardwood cuttings. And now I have this new variety that's just arrived today, Fatsia polycarpa, commonly known as green fingers. At number 9 is the podophyllum. This is a variety called Spotty Dotty. This plant is hardy down to -5 at least, although with a little protection from hard frost should be fine throughout the UK. It has beautiful spotted foliage with new leaves showing the brightest markings. It enjoys shady, damp conditions and grows from a rhizome that can be divided when it's dormant. Flower buds form underneath the leaf, and in May or June will form into clusters of red flowers that will hang underneath the leaf. All parts of this plant are toxic if eaten. It will normally grow to about 45 centimetres tall. At number 8 is the ginger or ginger lily. Although there are several different varieties of ginger, some of them very different from others, and not all of them hardy, many of the varieties of ginger can be left outdoors throughout the winter in the UK. The hardiest is Hedychium densiflorum. Most varieties will offer a fantastic jungle foliage to an exotic garden, as well as beautiful flowers later in the year. Many varieties of ginger will grow to as much as over 2 metres tall in just one season. They grow best in a sheltered sunny spot, although they may not like hot midday sun, and they'll grow well in most soil types and particularly like rich soil. In winter they'll normally die back to the ground level unless they're brought indoors for added protection. However, the main risk to them over winter is likely to be from the wet, damp weather causing the rhizome to rot rather than from the frosts. This variety, called Courtleia spicata, flowers in midsummer and looks very exotic. At number 7 is the Ruum palmatum. If you're looking for an architectural plant with large leaf foliage, then Ruum palmatum leaves can grow up to 75 centimetres long. This plant originated in China and is known as Chinese rhubarb, although it is not edible. The dark green palmately lobed leaves have a beautiful red underside, and newly emerging leaves are much darker and redder in colour. In spring it produces fluffy white or pink flowers on a tall spike up to 2 metres tall. It prefers full sun or partial shade and does best in sandy or chalky soils that are more acid or neutral. This plant is hardy throughout the UK and dies back to ground level over winter. At number 6 is the Gunnera. There are 2 main varieties of Gunnera available in the UK, which is Gunnera manicata and Gunnera tinctoria. Tinctoria, however, is considered to be an invasive species along riverbeds and therefore isn't legal to be sold. Unfortunately, many sellers do sell this masked as manicata, and I myself was sent the tinctoria variety. But it is legal to own and it is a beautiful plant still. Tinctoria have a very pinkish red stem, whereas the manicata has a green stem, and that's the main way that you can tell the difference between the 2 varieties, and the manicata will normally reach a much larger size. Large flower spikes grow at the base of the plant in summer. This plant is a stunning addition to a tropical garden with these absolutely huge leaves. It prefers really damp, boggy conditions as it consumes a huge amount of water. I sank a trough under mine before I planted it just to make sure that it captured more water. In winter it will die back to ground level, and most people cut the leaves back to cover it over for added protection. However, mine got iced over last winter and still grew back absolutely fine the following spring. So if you're looking for an architectural plant that's going to make a dramatic impact, this one will be perfect. At number 5 is the Paulownia tomentosa. Also known as the Empress tree, Paulownia tomentosa is one of the fastest growing trees in the world. Originating in China and Korea, its ovate leaves can reach up to 30 centimetres long, although they will only reach this size if they're pollarded or coppiced down to the ground every year. Although this may sound brutal, the tree can grow 2.5 metres in just one season. However, if left unpollarded, the tree will grow smaller leaves but display beautiful fragrant lilac flowers. This is hardy through most of the UK and prefers full sun and most soil types. At number 4 is the Musa basjoo. This plant is probably a staple in most tropical or exotic gardens. It's fast growing and produces this lovely jungle foliage, although its leaves do get very shredded with the first sign of any wind. However, this is a protective factor for the plant and doesn't do it any harm. The banana grows well in sun or shade or most soil types, so it's very easy to grow and produces lots of these smaller pups, which can be left in place to grow in a clump or divided and put elsewhere around the garden. The banana is root hardy, so in colder parts of the UK, if the banana does die back to ground level, it will normally send up new pups in spring. Once the banana has finished flowering, it's completed its life cycle and the plant will die, but it will send up new pups. The bananas that it produces are not edible. At number 3 is Colocasia. Also known as taro, this plant originates in East Asia, where its tuberous root is used as a source of food. Its elephant ear-shaped leaves form a fantastic jungle foliage that can grow up to 1.2 metres tall and leaves up to 60 centimetres long. It grows best in partial shade with nice damp soils, so is perfect for a bog garden. This variety is called Pink China, which is the hardiest variety of Colocasia. It has these beautiful deep pink stems and is hardy throughout most of the UK. They could be propagated by division to be moved to other areas of your garden, and there are several different varieties with really interesting coloured leaves. Although not considered as hardy as Pink China, these varieties have survived the harsh frosts that we've had down here on the south coast of the UK. So if you're not keen on dry storing the tubers or overwintering the plants indoors, then it is still worth giving it a go outside and see how the plant fares. At number 2 is the Tetrapanax papyrifer. This plant is the standard form of Tetrapanax papyrifer. A lot of gardeners will try and get the T-Rex variety, which is famed for its massive leaves. However, the standard variety also has very large leaves that can grow up to 60 centimetres across. The plant originates in Taiwan and will tolerate most soil types and prefers full sun or part shade. It's generally considered hardy, however, sometimes it may lose some growth from the top of the stem and then sprout the leaves from lower down. I also grow a small Tetrapanax steroidal giant. I'm letting it develop in a pot a little bit more at the moment for its protection. However, as the name suggests, this will grow bigger and faster than the other Tetrapanax. And finally, at number 1 is the canna. This is one of my favourite plants for jungle foliage because there are so many different varieties. Some of them can grow up to 3 metres tall. This one, Canna Russian Red, is one of the taller varieties, but it also produces these lovely orange flowers at the end of summer. Canna Cleopatra has a beautiful red stripe in its lush green leaves, and the flowers are a mixture of yellow and red, although there can be variation where it's just red or just yellow. As you can see, a predominantly red leaf coming through here and a predominantly red flower bud is starting to form here. Here in Hampshire, I leave my canna in the ground throughout winter. In the more northern parts of the UK, it may need to be dug up and overwintered, dry stored. They do best with full sun and plenty of fertiliser, and can be propagated by dividing the rhizomes. If growing from seed, you'll normally need to soak the seeds for about 48 hours before sowing, as they are covered in a tough outer shell. Canna are quick growing and will quickly form these lovely big clumps of lush jungle foliage, followed by the most beautiful flowers in summer and early autumn. And there are a wide variety of colours of flowers available as well, including pink, yellow, red, orange, apricot. And while most form lovely big blooms like this one, there are others like canna patterns with very tiny delicate flowers. To see some of the varieties of canna that are available, I'll put a link in the description to one of my previous videos, as well as a link to my video on gingers and colocasias, as well as some other types of elephant ears. Next up, we're going to Staunton Farm and we're going to be talking to head gardener Chris Bailey about the tropical glasshouse and the plants that he grows within it, including the Amazon lily, which is in flower now. I first did a video on the Staunton Glasshouse back in April, and I promised at the time that I would come back to do another one because there was a lot more to be covered. So as promised, I've come back again, and now I've got an interview to bring you with the head gardener, as well as a lot more information provided about the plants that are being grown here. Today I met with Chris Bailey, head gardener of Staunton Farm, to talk about the Amazon lily and the glasshouse.
Hiya, my name's Chris Bailey. I'm the head horticulturist here at Staunton Farm, part of Hampshire County Council's Countryside Service. And we're in the tropical Amazon lily house with the Victoria Longwood hybrid there behind me. Got a small team that maintain tropical gardens, tropical glasshouses, the wall garden and the Grade 2 historic landscape. The giant Amazon water lily is native to South America. There's two naturally occurring species, Victoria amazonica and Victoria cruziana, and in 1961 at the Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania, a chap called Patrick Nutt hybridised, crossed the two plants to form the lily behind us, Victoria Longwood hybrid, named after the garden. That's quite a good link because it's with the generosity and kindness of Longwood Gardens that every year they gift us the seed. It's a pea-sized seed, and the plant behind me was a pea-sized seed approximately 3.5 months ago. So you can see just how fast the lily grows. Right in the centre of the Amazon lily pads, there's quite a large floral bud. The Amazon lily puts up a flower when the sun sets. So on the tropics, it's approximately 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. That flower will open almost 30 centimetres across, with a beautiful scent of sort of pineapple and butterscotch, pure brilliant white, and in its native habitat on the tributaries of the Amazon, etc., it's pollinated by a dynastid beetle, which dives into the flower, feeds on starchy appendages, but little do they know that with the sun rising in the morning, the flower is actually closing, and the flower effectively encapsulates, traps the beetles inside the flower during the daylight hours. It's not carnivorous, and on the second evening, on sunset, the flower reopens for the final time, and it's gone from pure brilliant white to a deep pink cerise colour, thereby releasing the beetles who are dusted in the pollen, and they fly off to another first night receptive flower. And that's how pollination and fertilisation occur for the next generation of seed. Although it only flowers for two nights, there's a succession of blooms approximately every 4 to 5 days.
Next, I want to take you round some of the plants in the glasshouse. I think this beautiful palm tree here is Dipsis penbana. Although it normally grows in clusters, it can grow as a solitary tree, and these lovely feathery pinnate leaves can be 6 to 7 feet long. This beautiful zamia provides a lovely jungle foliage. It's known as the cardboard palm, but it's actually a type of cycad. It's drought tolerant, but if you want to grow this plant, it's best to avoid frosts. And next to it, this stunning hibiscus Rosa sinensis has this beautiful orange flower. It's not hardy, but it can be kept outdoors in the summer months. This Acalipha wilkersiana has the most amazing foliage, bringing an abundance of colour to an otherwise normally green tropical foliage. It could be grown as an annual or a houseplant and propagated by taking cuttings. I love the speckled variegated foliage on this Codiaeum. Like most crotons, these can be grown outdoors during the summer months and moved indoors once winter hits. They like to be kept damp but not get too wet, otherwise the roots will start rotting. The staghorn fern naturally grows on trees, so it's the ideal plant if you're looking for something to grow in a hanging basket indoors. It's best to water this plant from below and allow it to dry out between waterings. This enormous philodendron would be absolutely amazing to grow as a house plant if you've got the space for it. However, it could survive outside in the garden, but would die back to ground level at the first frosts. This Neoregelia is also known as the fingernail plant due to these bright pink splashes at the end of the leaves. And this Sable Mexicana palm tree has the most enormous leaves that can grow up to 1.8 metres wide. And even in such a big glass house, it still looks like a really dominant plant. You can see here just how large these leaves are in comparison to my hand. And for carnivorous plant enthusiasts, this Nepenthes tricata would make a fantastic plant in a hanging basket. I did have a look, but there's nothing in there at the moment. And it's already got a new trap on the way as well. Spathophyllum willisii is better known as the peace lily, so will probably be very familiar to a lot of you. And these beautiful white flowers certainly don't look out of place sticking out from amongst the green tropical foliage. And these bizarre looking orange sticks are actually part of a palm tree called Chamaedorea cyphryzii, otherwise known as the bamboo palm. This plant is native to Mexico and Central America. Bambusa vulgaris is known as the common bamboo, but is not hardy. And I was particularly taken by the flowers on this spider hibiscus, which have a very exotic look. It's not hardy, but it would make a lovely houseplant. The Syngonium podophyllum, or arrowhead vine, is a wonderful tropical foliage and would make a wonderful houseplant, as it could even be trained to grow up a wall. And in the fernery there are a wide variety of different ferns growing, including Dicksonia antarctica, the tree fern that many of us have in our gardens. And I think this one might be Cyathea medullaris, which has a wonderful black trunk. This is not as hardy as the Dicksonia antarcticas, however it may survive a milder winter on the south coast of the UK.
Here at Staunton Farm, as I say, we're part of Hampshire County Council's Countryside Service. We're just north of Havant. Staunton Farm is in Middle Park Way, Havant, Hampshire, and the summer season is open at 10 AM and we lock up at 5 PM.
Thank you, Chris, for giving me your time to provide that interview. Now, the Ricinus is one of the fastest growing plants in my tropical garden, and next up we've got a video to talk a bit more about it. Ricinus communis is more commonly known as the castor bean or castor oil plant. It's native to East Africa, and in the warmer climates it could grow as tall as 8 to 12 metres, although in the UK it's usually grown as an annual and will reach a height of 1.5 to 2.5 metres in the space of a year. Ricinus plants prefer to be grown in full sun sheltered locations, and are tolerant of low temperatures but will not survive being frozen. They will tolerate most soil types but prefer moist, well-drained soil, regular fertiliser and water. These plants are known to be highly toxic both to humans and to animals, and it's not recommended that any part of the plant is consumed. However, they are grown as a wonderful addition to tropical or subtropical gardens due to their deeply lobed palmate leaves that can be glossy green, red or even bronze in colour and grow up to 30 centimetres long. Most of the varieties that I grow have this pink stem and green leaves. This is because the varieties have cross-pollinated over the years and I grow from the seeds that I've collected. However, this variety with the green stem resembles truer to form a variety called Blue Giant that I grew a few years ago. And this variety I grew a few years ago was much darker in colour, and you can see here the red foliage that it produced. And at this point in August, you can see already what a dramatic impact these Ricinus plants have on the landscape of my garden, even though they haven't yet grown to full height. This video from November last year shows how tall it can grow. The Ricinus flowers are a creamy yellow colour. However, the spiky seed capsules can be very attractive and are often bright red in colour. However, if you are worried about the toxic effect of these seeds on animals, then it would be best to remove these seed pods or flowers before they start to form and fall to the ground. That said, none of my cats have ever tried to eat any of these seed pods, and I've been growing them for a few years now, so I think it's just a case of knowing your pet. The seeds themselves can be removed from the spiky seed pods. The beans have very distinguished markings on them. I normally sow mine very early in the year, but they are very quick to germinate, and I even get self-seeded ones around the garden from time to time. You can overwinter Ricinus by keeping it frost-free. However, the growth tends not to be quite as spectacular. So most gardeners in the UK will opt to allow their plants to die back over winter and just grow fresh seeds in spring. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to leave your comments below and make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. If you're enjoying this content, then please do make sure you're subscribed to my channel. This is still a new channel, so every subscriber really does make a difference. You can also turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss any of my new videos. And please let me know what you think in the comments because they really do help my channel to grow. You can also follow me on social media for links to my latest videos and my photo of the day, in which I usually share photos of flowers from my garden, along with their names if known. You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, or you can join my Facebook group to ask questions or share photos. And you can find all of my YouTube videos on Freya's Tropical Garden website, which I will also be expanding to provide advice pages as well as items for sale. Links to these pages are included in my description. There are lots of links in the description as well, so please don't forget to check them out.